Lieutenant Jack Harlow stared out the viewport as the USS Pioneer approached the massive ring-shaped structure floating in space. The Galactic Council headquarters was even more impressive up close than in the briefing materials. His stomach tightened with nerves. As Earth's first official diplomat to the galactic community, the weight of humanity's future rested partly on his shoulders. 30 minutes until docking, Lieutenant, said Captain Melissa Grant from behind him. How are you holding up? Jack turned and smiled at his commanding officer. Just taking it all in, Captain. 2 months ago, we thought we were alone in the universe. Now we're about to join a community of over 300 different species. Captain. Grant nodded. Remember your training. Some of these aliens will look very strange to us. Don't stare, don't make sudden movements, and follow protocol for each new introduction. Yes, ma'am, Jack replied. He had spent weeks memorizing the complex greeting rituals for dozens of species. The diplomatic corps had rushed to prepare him after the aliens made first contact, landing a small vessel in the middle of the Pacific Ocean and requesting to speak with Earth's leaders. The Pioneer docked with a gentle bump. Jack took a deep breath and squared his shoulders. He was ready. The welcoming committee waiting in the docking bay was not what Jack expected. 6 beings of different species stood at least 30 feet away from the airlock. They wore what looked like environmental suits complete with breathing apparatus. Clear barriers had been set up between them and the airlock where Jack would emerge. That's strange, Captain Grant whispered. The briefing said the atmosphere here is compatible with humans. Jack frowned. Maybe it's just protocol for first meetings? He stepped through the airlock and approached the waiting aliens, stopping at a designated mark on the floor. The tallest alien, a slender blue being with 4 arms and large almond-shaped eyes, spoke first. Its voice came through a translator device. Lieutenant Harlow of Earth, I am Chief Ambassador Zixtal. On behalf of the Galactic Council, I welcome you and your species to the greater community of civilized worlds. Jack performed the formal bow he had been taught. Thank you, Chief Ambassador. Earth is honored to join the galactic community and looks forward to peaceful cooperation with all species. He noticed the aliens shifting uncomfortably, their eyes fixed on him with what seemed like a mixture of fear and fascination. One smaller alien with scaly green skin whispered something to another, and both moved further back. Ambassador Zixtal gestured to a separate corridor. If you would follow the guide lights to the preparation chamber, we have arranged accommodations for your stay. Jack followed the blinking lights along the floor to a large room that looked more like a medical quarantine facility than guest quarters. The walls were reinforced, and all furniture was made of extremely sturdy materials. A thick glass wall separated this room from an adjacent conference area. After Jack had settled in, Ambassador Zixtal and 2 other aliens entered the conference area on the other side of the glass. I apologize for the unusual arrangements, Zixtal said through the communication system. We needed to take certain precautions. Jack frowned. Is there a problem, Ambassador? If there are health concerns, I assure you I've been thoroughly screened for any Earth pathogens. The 3 aliens exchanged glances. The smallest one, a round being with multiple eye stalks, made a sound that the translator didn't catch. Zixtal leaned forward. Lieutenant Harlow, there is no delicate way to explain this. Your home planet, Earth, has been classified as a Class 13 Deathworld, possibly even a Class 14. Jack stared blankly. I don't understand what that means. The Galactic Council classifies planets based on habitability and danger levels, Zixtal explained. Classes 1 through 5 are paradise worlds with ideal conditions for life. Classes 6 through 9 are standard habitable planets, where most spacefaring species evolved. Classes 10 through 12 are considered dangerous death worlds that require special equipment to visit. Jack nodded slowly. And Earth is beyond even that? Yes, said Zixtal. No Class 13 world has ever been confirmed to harbor sentient life, until now. The small round alien spoke up, its translator creating a high-pitched voice. Your gravity is crushing. Your oxygen levels are toxic to most species. Your temperature variations are extreme. Your planet is constantly bombarded with radiation from your sun. Your bacterial diversity alone would kill most of us within minutes. But Earth is just normal to us, Jack said, stunned. Exactly, Zixtal replied. The fact that humans consider such conditions normal is what makes your species so remarkable. You've evolved to not merely survive but thrive in an environment that would kill most sentient beings in the galaxy. Jack tried to process this information. So the barriers, the distance, the sealed room, are for our protection, confirmed Zixtal. Even your exhaled breath contains microorganisms that could be harmful to us. Your physical strength, compared to most species, is extraordinary. The pressure you could exert with a friendly handshake might crush the bones of many council representatives. Jack sat down heavily on the reinforced chair. I had no idea. The third alien, who had not spoken yet, moved closer to the glass. This being was insectoid, with compound eyes and a chitinous exoskeleton. It is not just your planet, Lieutenant. Your species has adapted to consume substances that would be deadly poisons to most of us. You deliberately ingest capsaicin, caffeine, and alcohol. You expose your skin to solar radiation for pleasure. Your entertainment includes voluntary exposure to simulated danger and fear. Jack couldn't help but laugh. You mean like spicy food and horror movies? Precisely, said Zixtal. What you consider mild discomfort would be torturous for most species. What you consider a challenging environment would be fatal for many. The information was overwhelming. Jack stood up and paced the room, aware that the aliens watched his every move with caution. So what does this mean for Earth joining the Galactic Council? He finally asked. Zixtal's large eyes blinked slowly. It means, Lieutenant Harlow, that humanity enters galactic society with a unique status. Your physical capabilities, resilience, and adaptability far exceed most species. This will shape every aspect of our future relationship. For better or worse? Jack asked. That remains to be seen, Zixtal replied. Some will fear you. Others will seek your protection. Many will want to study you. All will be fascinated by the Deathworlders who thought their lethal planet was normal. Jack looked out the viewport at the stars beyond. Everything he thought he knew about humanity's place in the universe had just changed. They weren't just newcomers to an ancient galactic community. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. Ambassador, Jack said, squaring his shoulders. I think Earth and the Galactic Council have a lot to learn from each other. And I'm ready to begin. Zixtal made a gesture that Jack's cultural training identified as respect. So are we, Lieutenant. So are we. 3 months after first contact, Dr. Olivia Reeves wiped sweat from her forehead as she led a group of alien researchers through the specially constructed facility in Arizona. The building had been designed with separate environmental controls, for each section to accommodate the visitors from different worlds. For most of them, Earth's normal conditions would be unbearable or even fatal. And this is our main research laboratory, Olivia said, gesturing to the large room with various scientific equipment. She watched the aliens through the clear barrier that separated them. They moved cautiously in their protective suits, examining everything with obvious fascination. The temperature in your facility is quite high, commented Dr. Vreen, a short amphibian-like scientist from a Class 4 world. His translator conveyed his discomfort. How do you function in such heat? Olivia checked the display panel. It's currently 74 degrees Fahrenheit, which is actually on the cool side for human comfort. Our bodies regulate temperature very effectively. The aliens exchanged glances that Olivia had learned to recognize as surprise. Professor Kinzel, a tall avian being with iridescent feathers, moved closer to examine a set of weights in the corner of the lab. These are your physical training devices? Yes, Olivia replied. Those are for our staff to stay physically fit during long research shifts. The smallest one here, Kinzel said, pointing to a 20-pound dumbbell, would require 3 of my species working together to lift it. Olivia tried to hide her surprise. She had known the aliens were physically different, but the extent of the differences was still shocking. That's considered very light for most humans. Many of us lift weights 10 times that size for exercise, the group of alien scientists murmured among themselves, their translators struggling to keep up with their excited chatter. Alan Garrison, one of the administrative assistants, entered the room carrying boxes of research equipment. The young man was of average build for a human, certainly not what would be considered athletic on Earth. He nodded politely to the aliens as he effortlessly stacked the heavy boxes on a table. Clavor, a military officer from a Class 10 world, who had been observing silently until now, stepped forward. Unlike the others, his species was from one of the tougher planets in the galaxy, and his protective suit was less extensive. "Your assistant," Clavor said to Olivia. "Is he a specialized heavy lifter?" Olivia shook her head. "No. Alan works in administration. He has no special training for strength." Clavor seemed skeptical. "On my world, I am considered exceptionally strong. May I test my strength against his?" Alan looked to Olivia, who considered the request. "I suppose a simple demonstration would be fine, as long as we're careful." They set up at a small table with Clavor removing the glove from his environmental suit to grip Alan's hand for an arm wrestling match. The other aliens moved closer, clearly intrigued. "I'll be gentle," Alan promised, giving a reassuring smile. The match began. Clavor strained visibly, his alien features contorting with effort. Alan held his position with obvious ease, hardly exerting himself at all. After allowing Clavor to try for several seconds, Alan steadily pushed the alien's arm down to the table. Clavor pulled back, clutching his arm. "Amazing, and somewhat painful," he admitted. "Your strength is beyond anything in my experience, and I come from what we considered a high-gravity world." The demonstration had a profound effect on the visiting scientists. They began asking more questions, requesting measurements and tests comparing human capabilities to their own species. Dr. Vreen approached Olivia with a data tablet. "We've been analyzing the environmental data from your planet. The variations are extraordinary. Some regions experience temperature swings of over 100 degrees in your Fahrenheit scale. Others are constantly bombarded with storms. Your oceans contain pressure levels that would crush most spacefaring species. And yet humans have explored all those environments," Olivia said. "We've climbed our highest mountains, dived to our deepest ocean trenches, and survived in our most extreme deserts." "Not just survived," Professor Kinzel added. "Your species actively seeks out these challenges. You have recreational activities specifically designed to test your limits in these deadly conditions." Before Olivia could respond, the room trembled, slightly. The floor vibrated under their feet and the light swayed. The alien visitors immediately began looking around in panic. "Shelter protocols," cried one of them. "The structure is collapsing." Olivia raised her hands calmly. "It's all right, it's just a small earthquake. This happens fairly often in this region." "Earthquake?" Dr. Vreen's translator couldn't find an equivalent word in his language. "You mean the planet itself is attacking us?" "Not attacking," Olivia explained. "It's just the natural movement of tectonic plates beneath the surface. This one is quite mild, probably only 4.2 or so on our Richter scale. The building is designed to withstand much stronger quakes." The aliens were not reassured. One of them had retreated to a corner and appeared to be practicing some form of calming technique. "Your species evolved on a planet that regularly experiences ground ruptures, extreme weather, poisonous plants, predatory animals, and deadly microorganisms," said Clavor, a new respect in his voice. "And you consider this normal?" "We've had to adapt," Olivia said simply. Later that day, after the scheduled tests were complete, Olivia met with her human colleagues to review the findings. The comparative physiology data was remarkable. Even the physically weakest of the human researchers displayed strength, endurance, and resilience that far exceeded the strongest representatives of most alien species. "They're amazed by us," said Alan, still surprised by his easy victory over Clavor. "But I'm just an ordinary guy." "That's exactly the point," Olivia replied. "What's ordinary for us is extraordinary for them. We evolved on a world that would kill most of them instantly. Our bodies adapted to survive conditions they can barely imagine." Dr. Gregory Porter, the team's xenobiologist, looked up from his data tablet. "According to their classification system, no sentient species has ever evolved past Class 12 before. They had theories that a Class 13 world would be too dangerous for complex intelligence to develop. And yet here we are, Olivia said. The implications are significant, Gregory continued. We're not just newcomers to the galactic community, we're unique. Our physical capabilities alone make us valuable as potential allies, explorers, and emergency responders. But they also make some species fear us. Olivia looked out the window at the desert landscape. The setting sun cast long shadows across the rocky terrain. To her it was beautiful. To their visitors it was a glimpse of an alien hell. We need to proceed carefully, she said. We're not just introducing ourselves to the galaxy. We're rewriting their understanding of what life can adapt to. We're Deathworlders to them, and that changes everything. 6 months after first contact, Captain Susan Fletcher stood on the bridge of the USS Pathfinder, the second human vessel commissioned for interstellar travel. Unlike the diplomatic Pioneer, the Pathfinder was designed primarily for search and rescue operations. Susan was proud of her ship and her crew, all carefully selected for this mission. Captain, we're receiving a distress call, said Lieutenant Frank Rivera from the communications station. It's coming from a Verulian science vessel. Susan straightened her uniform. Put it through. The main screen flickered to life, showing a blue-skinned alien with large, worried eyes. Static interrupted the transmission. This is Captain Susan Fletcher of the Earth vessel Pathfinder. We've received your distress call. What is your situation? The Verulian's voice came through broken and distorted. Engine failure, radiation levels rising, cannot survive much longer, need immediate assistance. We're tracking your location, Susan said. Can you give us details on your ship's status? Trapped in asteroid field. High radiation. Zone. Life support failing. Lieutenant Rivera muted the transmission. Captain, they're in the Cygnus radiation belt. That's an extremely dangerous area. Most species can't handle more than an hour of exposure to those radiation levels. Susan nodded. How long would it take the nearest Galactic Council rescue vessel to reach them? At least 12 hours, ma'am. And us? 45 minutes at maximum speed. Susan didn't hesitate. Helm, set course for the Verulian vessel. Maximum speed. Aye, Captain, replied the helm officer. When they arrived at the edge of the asteroid field, Susan could see the problem immediately. The Verulian ship was small, barely larger than a shuttle, and it was wedged between two slowly rotating asteroids. The entire region glowed with an eerie purple light from the radiation. Radiation levels? Susan asked. Class C radiation, Captain, reported the science officer. Dangerous to humans with prolonged exposure, but our suits can protect us for about 6 hours. For Verulians, it's immediately life-threatening. Susan stood. Prepare a rescue team. I'll lead it myself. The bridge crew exchanged glances. Captain, said Commander Pete Wilson, her first officer, are you sure that's wise? Those people will die waiting for anyone else to reach them, Susan said firmly. Besides, we're Deathworlders, remember? This is exactly why we're out here. 30 minutes later, Susan led a team of 4 across the gap between the ships. They wore radiation suits, but they were significantly lighter than what any other species would require. The Pathfinder had carefully matched velocity with the Verulian vessel, but maneuvering through the drifting asteroids was still tricky. When they cut through the airlock, they found 5 Verulian scientists huddled in an interior compartment. They looked terrified, their blue skin pale from radiation exposure. They wore protective suits of their own, but the suits were clearly failing. We're from Earth, Susan said, keeping her voice calm. We're here to get you to safety. The Verulians stared at her with a mixture of relief and fear. One of them spoke, his translator working poorly in the radiation. Humans, they sent. Humans? We were closest, Susan explained, helping one of them to stand. We need to move quickly. Our ship is docked nearby. Another Verulian, barely conscious, whispered something Susan couldn't catch. Their leader translated. She says, "Are you really from a Class 13 world?" Susan nodded. That's right. and right now that's good news for you. The rescue was successful. Susan's team carried the Verulians back to the Pathfinder, where the ship's doctor immediately began treatment for radiation poisoning. The aliens would recover, though they needed intensive care. 2 weeks later, the Pathfinder docked at Orbital Station 7, a massive space station serving as a diplomatic hub for 17 different species. Susan had been invited to a reception, honoring her crew's rescue mission. The grand hall was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. Susan noticed immediately how the crowd reacted to her entrance. Some moved closer, eager to meet her. Others backed away, watching cautiously. "Captain Fletcher," called a tall, reed-thin alien with shimmering skin. "I am Ambassador Palaxian. My government wishes to express our deepest gratitude for your rescue of the science vessel." Susan shook his hand carefully, mindful of her strength. "We were just doing our job, Ambassador." "No other ship could have reached them in time," the ambassador said. "The radiation levels alone would have killed most rescue teams. Your species' natural resilience to radiation is remarkable." "We've had plenty of practice on Earth," Susan said with a smile. "Our planet has quite a bit of natural radiation." The ambassador leaned closer. "My government would be interested in discussing a military alliance with Earth. Your people's unique capabilities would be invaluable in certain contested regions." Before Susan could respond, another voice cut in. "Trying to recruit the Deathworlders already, Palaxian?" The speaker was a short, stocky alien with rough gray skin. "Typical, Ambassador Drex," Palaxian said coolly. "I was merely expressing gratitude." "Of course you were," Drex replied. He turned to Susan. "Be careful, Captain. Some see your kind as weapons to be pointed at their enemies." Susan kept her diplomatic smile. "We see ourselves as neighbors, Ambassador. Nothing more, nothing less." "Neighbors?" came a new voice. A tall, elegant alien with 4 arms approached. "I think not. The Axlori Confederation has filed a formal request that human vessels maintain a minimum safe distance from our territories." "Safe distance?" Susan asked, surprised. "Your biology alone poses a threat," the Axlori representative said. "The microbes you carry, the strength you possess, the environments you can endure. Would you let a toxic waste carrier dock at your civilian ports?" Susan felt her temper rise but kept it in check. "With proper protocols, we can ensure safety for all species." The debate continued around her. Some species argued that humans should be restricted to certain designated areas of space. Others wanted to establish joint colonies on worlds too, harsh for other species. A few suggested that humans serve as a specialized rescue force. Later that night, Susan sat alone in her quarters, reviewing the diplomatic reports. Commander Wilson joined her, bringing coffee. "Complicated day?" he asked. Susan nodded. "Being a Deathworlder comes with more political baggage than I expected." "Some fear us, some want to use us, some admire us," Wilson said. "It's a strange position to be in. The Palaxians want an alliance against the Drex. The Verulians want us to help establish colonies on high-radiation worlds. The Axlori want us quarantined." Susan sighed. "And all because we evolved on a planet with a bit more gravity and radiation than most." Wilson smiled. "A bit more? Captain, I saw the data. Most of these species would die within minutes on Earth without protection. What's normal to us is extreme to them." Susan looked out the viewport at the stars. "We're not even a year into galactic society, and already we're changing the balance of power just by existing." "So what do?" Wilson asked. "We be the best neighbors we can," Susan replied. "We use our strength to help, not threaten, and we remember that we might be Deathworlders, but we're still diplomats first." Wilson raised his coffee cup. "To the diplomats from hell," Susan laughed and clinked, her cup against his. "To Earth, Class 13 Deathworld and home to the toughest diplomats in the galaxy." 1 year after first contact, Commander Daniel Walsh walked through the wide corridors of Gateway Station. The massive space station served as humanity's primary connection to galactic society, floating in orbit between Earth and the Moon. Daniel, headed the security detail for the human section of the station, a job that grew more complicated every day as more alien species arrived to trade, negotiate, or simply observe the Deathworlders. "Commander," called a voice behind him. Daniel turned to see Linda Patel, one of the station's communications officers, hurrying toward him. Her face was tense. "Sir, we just received an emergency transmission from the Galactic Council. They're patching it through to the main briefing room." Daniel quickened his pace. "What's the situation?" "They didn't say, but it's coded as critical," Linda replied. When Daniel entered the briefing room, it was already filled with senior staff. Director Samantha Carter, the civilian administrator of Gateway Station, stood at the head of the table. The large screen on the wall showed several alien faces, including Ambassador Zixtal, whom Daniel recognized from briefing materials as one of the first aliens to make contact with humanity. "Commander Walsh, thank you for joining us," Director Carter said. "The Council was just about to brief us on the situation." Ambassador Zixtal's translator conveyed his deep concern. Approximately 8 hours ago, the Vega colony went silent. When a patrol ship arrived to investigate, they found most of the colony destroyed. There were few survivors, and they reported being attacked by an unknown species. Images appeared on the screen. The Vega colony had been built on a Class 7 world, comfortable for most spacefaring species. Now it showed scenes of devastation, buildings torn apart, strange burn marks on the ground, and very few survivors. "Do we know who attacked them?" Daniel asked. "They call themselves the Krell," said another council member, a reptilian alien with iridescent scales. "We have encountered them before, but never this close to core systems. They come from the uncharted regions beyond the outer rim." "What do they want?" Director Carter asked. "Territory," replied Zixtal. "Resources. They take what they need and destroy what they don't. We have tried to establish communication, but they respond only with violence." "If they've attacked before, why haven't they been stopped?" Daniel asked. The council members exchanged uncomfortable glances. "The Krell's technology is uniquely suited to combat our defenses," explained a small, furry alien. "Their ships can withstand levels of radiation and pressure that would destroy most of our vessels. Their weapons target the specific weaknesses of our most common ship designs. And their biology is even more troubling," added Zixtal. "They appear to thrive in environments that would kill most species. They require no protective gear on worlds up to Class 11. Daniel leaned forward, his interest piqued. "Do you have any visual records of these Krell?" A new image appeared on the screen. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. The Krell resembled nothing so much as Earth's deep-sea creatures, a nightmarish blend of anglerfish, squid, and crab. Their bodies were clearly evolved for extreme pressure and harsh conditions. "They look like they're from a death world," Daniel said quietly. "Precisely," said Zixtal. "Our scientists believe they evolved on a planet even more extreme than Earth, possibly a true Class 14. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Director Carter was the first to speak. "What is the Council doing to stop them?" "Have mobilized our defense fleets," said the reptilian council member. "But the Krell ships move faster than ours through radiation zones and gravitational disturbances. They attack, then retreat to environments where we cannot follow." "And what do you want from Earth?" Daniel asked directly, already suspecting the answer. Zixtal's large eyes blinked slowly. "Humanity is unique among Council species. You evolved on a world almost as harsh as the Krell homeworld. Your ships are built to withstand conditions that would destroy our vessels. Your bodies can endure environments that would kill our soldiers instantly. You want us to fight your war," Director Carter said, her voice neutral. "We want your help," Zixtal corrected. "The Krell threat concerns all spacefaring species, including humans. If they continue to expand, they will eventually reach Earth." The Council representative signed off after providing more details about Krell movements and attacks. The humans in the briefing room sat in silence for a long moment. "They're afraid," said Linda Patel. "I could hear it in their voices. These Krell terrify them." Daniel nodded. "With good reason. The Council species evolved on comfortable worlds. Their technology is impressive, but it's designed for ideal conditions. The Krell, like us, come from a world that tried to kill them every day. That creates a different kind of species. Director Carter tapped her fingers on the table. I need to consult with Earth governments before making any commitments, but the threat seems real enough. There's something else, Daniel said. The Krell. Their appearance reminds me of creatures from Earth's deep oceans, the most extreme environments on our planet. What are you suggesting? Asked another staff member. I'm suggesting that maybe the Krell aren't so different from us, Daniel replied. They're Deathworlders like humans. They evolved to survive hostile conditions. The difference is in how they've chosen to use their strength. Later that day, Daniel reviewed all available data on the Krell in his office. Their ships could withstand radiation levels twice what human vessels could handle. Their soldiers wore no breathing apparatus on worlds with toxic atmospheres. They seemed to prefer high-gravity environments. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. Director Carter entered, looking troubled. Earth governments are concerned, she said without preamble. They're willing to help with evacuation and humanitarian aid, but they're hesitant to engage militarily with a species we know so little about. Smart, Daniel nodded. We should learn more before we start shooting. The Council won't like it, Carter sighed. They see us as their best hope against the Krell. Maybe we are, Daniel said, but not necessarily as soldiers. We're Deathworlders who chose peace. We built a civilization on a planet that tried to kill us. We turned our strength toward cooperation and exploration. He pointed to the image of the Krell on his screen. These are Deathworlders who chose conquest, but they're not monsters. They're survivors, like us. They're doing what they think they must to ensure their species continues to exist. What are you suggesting? Carter asked. Daniel stood up. I'm suggesting that humans might be uniquely qualified to understand the Krell. We come from similar worlds. We faced similar challenges, but we made different choices. You want to try communicating with them? The Council said they've tried that. The Council species come from paradise worlds, Daniel pointed out. They can't possibly understand the Krell mindset. But we might. Director Carter considered this. It's risky. The Krell have shown no interest in diplomacy. Because no one speaking their language has tried, Daniel replied. Not the language of words, the language of survival, of adaptation, of doing whatever it takes to live on a world that wants you dead, Carter nodded slowly. I'll propose it to Earth governments. A small team, minimal risk to attempt contact. One Deathworld species reaching out to another, Daniel said. It might be our best chance to avoid a galactic war. As Director Carter left, Daniel looked again at the image of the Krell. In their alien features, he saw something familiar, the same hard-won determination that had driven humanity to survive and thrive on their own deadly world. 6 weeks after the first Krell attacks, Lieutenant Nicole Bennett stood on the bridge of the USS Challenger. The ship had been specially modified for this mission, with reinforced hull plating and enhanced radiation shielding. Nicole led the First Contact Team, a group of 12 specialists chosen for their expertise in xenobiology, linguistics, and diplomacy. The Galactic Council had reluctantly agreed to let humans attempt communication with the Krell, though most Council species believed it was a suicidal mission. Approaching the coordinates, announced the helmsman. Entering the radiation belt now. Nicole took a deep breath. They were entering an area of space that most Council ships couldn't survive, an asteroid field bathed in levels of radiation, lethal to most species. Intelligence reports suggested this was where the Krell had established a forward base. All stations report, Nicole ordered. Engineering ready. Radiation shields at maximum. Life support stable. Weapons on standby but not active as ordered. Nicole nodded. Begin broadcasting the greeting message on all frequencies. The message they had prepared was simple. It contained basic mathematical sequences to establish intelligence, followed by images of humans living on Earth, climbing mountains, diving in oceans, standing in deserts. They wanted to show the Krell that humans, too, were adapted to extreme environments. Contact, called the sensor officer suddenly. 3 vessels approaching from behind the largest asteroid. The Krell ships appeared on the view screen. They were unlike any vessel Nicole had seen before, asymmetrical, with strange protrusions and what looked like organic components. They were clearly built for function over form, designed to withstand the harshest conditions in space. "They're scanning us," reported the communications officer, "but not charging weapons." "Keep broadcasting," Nicole said. "Add the next sequence." The next part of their message showed humans and various council species together, followed by images of the Krell attacks and their aftermath. They weren't accusing, merely acknowledging what had happened. "One of the ships is moving closer," said the helmsman. "They're matching our orbit." Nicole watched the alien vessel carefully. "Any response to our transmission?" "Nothing yet. But wait." The communications officer adjusted his controls. "We're receiving something. I'm not sure what it is." The speakers filled with strange sounds, clicks, rumbles, and high-pitched whistles. Nicole had expected this. "Route it through the translation matrix. Compare it to the deep-sea communication patterns we loaded from Earth's cetaceans." The computer worked to analyze the sounds. Meanwhile, the Krell ship drew closer. "They could have destroyed us by now," Nicole said quietly to her first officer. "The fact that they're communicating at all is a good sign." The translation matrix beeped. Words began to appear on the screen, rough approximations at best. "Why, come, danger place, not attack, curious." "They want to know why we've come to their territory without attacking," Nicole said. "Send our response." The ship transmitted the carefully prepared message. "We come to understand. We come from world like yours. Hard world, dangerous world. We survive, like you survive." There was a long pause. The Krell ship remained alongside, them close enough that Nicole could see details of its strange construction through the view screen. Finally, more sounds came through, and the matrix translated. "Prove. Same world type? Prove strong." Nicole had anticipated this possibility. "They want proof that we come from a Deathworld like theirs. Prepare the environmental data on Earth, and ready the shuttle for demonstration." Within an hour, Nicole found herself in a small shuttle approaching a larger Krell vessel that had joined the first three. Her team consisted of 4 specialists, all wearing minimal protective gear. The plan was risky, but calculated. They would demonstrate human resilience firsthand. The Krell allowed them to dock with their ship. When the airlock opened, Nicole was hit with an environment that would have killed most council species instantly. The atmosphere was heavy with radiation, the gravity nearly twice Earth normal, and the air contained elements toxic to most life forms. Nicole removed her breathing mask as a show of good faith. It was uncomfortable and her lungs burned slightly, but her body could handle it for a short time. The other humans followed her lead. The Krell that met them were even more intimidating in person. They stood over 7 feet tall, with bodies that resembled Earth's deep-sea creatures. Their skin glistened with moisture, and multiple limbs moved with surprising grace, despite the heavy gravity. Through a portable translation device, Nicole spoke. "We come from Earth. Class 13, Deathworld. Like your world." The lead Krell moved closer, studying her with large dark eyes. It responded, and the translator approximated. "Why council pets? Why help soft ones?" Nicole understood the question. "Not pets. Partners. We choose cooperation. Strength protects, not conquers." Over the next several hours, Nicole's team shared information about Earth with the Krell. They learned that the Krell called their homeworld Vectal, a planet with crushing gravity, constant radiation, and extreme pressure variations. But most importantly, they learned why the Krell fought. "Home destroyed," the translator conveyed. "Star death. Few survive. Need new world. Hard world. Like Vectal." Nicole felt a wave of understanding. "Your planet was destroyed. You're refugees. Need world. Council world's too soft. We die there. Need hard world. Like home." Now it all made sense. The Krell weren't conquerors. They were desperate survivors. Their homeworld had been destroyed by a stellar event, and they could only survive on planets with conditions similar to their home, conditions that most council species considered uninhabitable. There are worlds, Nicole said carefully. Hard worlds. Class 12, Class 13. No one lives there. Council species can't use them. Too hard for them, good for you. The Krell leader's posture changed. Show these worlds. Back on the Challenger, Nicole presented the Krell representatives with data on dozens of planets throughout Council space. Worlds rich in resources but too extreme for most species to colonize. Worlds that could be perfect for the Krell. 3 days later, Nicole stood before the Galactic Council, explaining the agreement she had brokered. The Krell would cease attacks on Council worlds in exchange for colonization rights to uninhabited Class 12 and 13 planets. Earth would serve as an intermediary, helping the Krell establish colonies and facilitating communication with the Council. The Krell are not our enemies, Nicole concluded. They're survivors, like us. They come from a world even more extreme than Earth, and when that world was destroyed, they did what they had to do to survive. Ambassador Zixtal spoke. This is unprecedented. A new political alliance between Deathworld species. The Deathworld Alliance, Nicole said with a smile. That's what we're calling it. Earth and Vectal, working together to colonize worlds too harsh for other species. As the council meeting ended, Nicole looked out at the stars through the station's viewport. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy. Not as conquerors, not as servants, but as bridges between worlds. Their curse of evolving on a deadly planet had become their greatest strength. In a galaxy full of paradise worlds, it took a species from a death world to understand that sometimes the harshest beginnings created the strongest bonds.